and elsewhere too. We're now joined by Brian Howell, covers Colorado for the Boulder Daily Camera. As Colorado, the Buffs and Dion hit the field today, the first of their practices for football season. Brian, thanks for your time. Craig Smoke and David Smoke on 365 Sports. What is the difference between how that program hit today compared to a year ago?
Well, the biggest difference is that they're not all new. They've got a lot of new players, but there's a lot of core guys that are back from last year that kind of know the drill. They know what it's like being in this. The expectations they've had, more than a year now to get to, learn what those expectations are. And so I think that they do have that core group that can kind of, bring the new guys along as opposed to there being basically 100 guys trying to learn each other.
Brian, I saw the note on Ethan Boyd will not be joining Colorado. Not having a real close knowledge of that roster, how important or unimportant was that? I mean, is this a big-time contributor they were expecting, or how would you kind of describe the fact that he will not be on the team this year?
Not a huge deal. I mean, he was a depth piece on the offensive line.
Okay.
A transfer from Michigan State that spent the summer with CU. He got here early summer and apparently just decided he didn't want to play football anymore. So I don't think he would have been a starter or anything like that. I think he was more, it may come into play later in the year. And like, man, we wish we had him. But I think at the start of the year, it's not a big loss.
So how do you feel about the way they did address the offensive line? That was, numero uno amongst the storylines that had to do with actually on-the-field play. Is there a confidence that they've got it right and that they're going to be able to allow Shedeur to maximize, his tools and all the weapons at his disposal?
Yeah, you listen to them and just hand them the Joe Moore Award right now, because – they obviously talk glowingly about this group, but I don't know if they're that. I don't think they're going to be like the best line in the Big 12. I almost said Pac-12, but I think they're a better group, and it'd be hard not to be. They were pretty bad last year. 8 new transfers, most of which were starters at FBS schools last year. A lot of competition and just a lot better, tenacity up front. I mean, we keep hearing about several of these guys that just kind of, bring some mean spirit to the field, which they kind of want on the offensive line. They got some guys that are, a little bit fighters and trash talkers, things like that. And so I think overall it's a better group.
So they have North Dakota State, which Dion even mentioned that, I believe, at Big 12 Media Days in Vegas. And then the next game is at Nebraska. And you would think both teams will be better when they play. Matt Rule year 2, Dion year 2. Is that kind of not a dicey start, but is that kind of a nice challenge to figure them out pretty quickly?
Yeah, and really I'd throw in week 3 there too when they go to Fort Collins.
Yeah.
And they haven't been to Fort Collins since 1996 was the last time those two teams played on CSU's campus. So, it's not the easiest start. I mean, nationally, I think people will look at it and say, no, that's not too bad of a start. But, I mean, really, there's some big challenges there. I mean, North Dakota State, in talking to, their people, they're super excited about being on national TV. And we know history that they come back these challenges. And Nebraska wants CU bad. I mean, CU's 3-0 against Nebraska since the two teams left the Big 12 years ago. Colorado's won all those matchups. And so Nebraska getting them there, that's going to be, a tough environment. And then CSU will be tough as well. So, yeah, we're going to learn a lot about them in early September.
So what happens if one of those 3 games or, Colorado State that was a game I was like 1 o'clock in the morning watching that game. It was so dramatic up in Boulder last year.
Well, and there's no love lost there.
No,
either.
They don't like each other. The coaches have gone at each other, et cetera. What happens if they have a flat tire early? Is that a cause for concern or just part of the schedule?
To me, it depends on where that happens. I mean, I think you can lose in Nebraska. Now, Buff fans wouldn't want to hear that. But if you're going to go 2-1, I think that loss has got to be Nebraska, because you can kind of, see where they can lose in Lincoln. That's a tough environment, but you really better win at home, even against a good North Dakota State team. And frankly, they're better and more talented than Colorado State. You have to win that game, even if it's in Fort Collins. So I think that if they stub their toe in Lincoln, I think that's okay, especially if it's a competitive, close game. But if you lose any of the other 2, I think there's maybe some cause for concern there.
So, Brian, Big 12 Media Days, which seems like forever ago at this point, it's like 3 weeks ago. But, I was wondering how the new schools would interact and just what that would be like. And, man, it felt like a group that really jived pretty well and got along and seemed to all fit together. And obviously, Colorado, this isn't their first rodeo in the Big 12, but what were your impressions and what were your thoughts on seeing them back into a quote-unquote new league and seeing the other newcomers as well and just how it all kind of fit together?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was a different vibe from last year because I went out to Big 12 Media Days last year when there was all the rumors about Colorado. I just kind of wanted to feel it out. And, it was, you could definitely feel the Texas-Oklahoma presence there last year. And, this year you could tell it wasn't there. And, Colorado was the team that had a lot of the buzz, especially on that day two when they took the podium. So, but I thought it was a good environment out there. I think it's a good collection of teams. And, frankly, there's a lot of those coaches that know Deion Sanders a little bit because they either recruited his sons or, Coach Joey McGuire, coached Deion Jr. in high school. So there's some history there with some of those guys. So that makes it kind of fun.
Brian, is this a year that Deion, I'm not saying has to get to a bowl game, but will it be a disappointment if they don't?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I would say they do have to get one. I think that when you've got Shedeur Sanders and you got Travis Hunter, and this is their last year, I think you better get to a bowl game. I mean, frankly, you're talking about, and Deion's talking about, these are going to be the top 2 picks or the top 5 picks in the draft. If you got those guys, you're not in a bowl game. I think that's a problem. And so I think that bowl game to me is their floor, and from there, maybe you get some breaks, and there's better than that. But I think bowl game is the absolute expectation for sure.
How can, in your mind, Travis Hunter be better this season?
Well, first off, if he's healthy, he has. He's played 2 years of college football, and he hasn't played a full season yet. He missed a few games with Jackson State. He had a lingering injury from high school, so he missed some time with Jackson State. And then last year, he missed 3.5 games. He had that injury against Colorado State, the lacerated kidney or liver. I can't remember which one it was, where he missed 3 games. So he only played 9 games last year. So I think the big thing is be available for 12 games. And then frankly, he's got to be a little bit better at corner. He struggled a little bit there last year. But beyond that, I mean, he's just phenomenal. And he's going to be really fun to watch, especially if he can play all 12 games.
All right, so you mentioned the offensive line with a little grit, little nastiness, et cetera. The defense needs that too in the trenches. I don't remember the exact number, but I know Shedeur was sacked a bunch, even in games that they won. How he's not a physical specimen, but he's a hell of an athlete, and he's tougher than nails. Is that the number one goal this year, is protecting him and making sure they do it the right way?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you're right. It was 52 times last year. He was sacked 8 times by Nebraska, even in a 36-14 win. He took 8 sacks. So, 52 times. That was a school record last year. So that is the number one priority. I mean, we've heard it since the end of last year that, Coach Prime's number one thing was, we've got to protect our quarterback. And a lot of people jump on that. We were talking about his son, and I get that. But frankly, when you've got one of the best quarterbacks in the country, whether he's your son or not, you want to try to take advantage of having that person on your team. And that's what USC tried to do with the Caleb Williams. I think that's what Colorado wants to do with Shedeur Sanders, is protect your asset. And their running backs coach talked today after practice, and he mentioned our guys at running back, they better pass protect, because if you're letting your guy sack our most valuable player, that's a problem. And so they need to protect Shedeur Sanders. If they can do that, I very much think he could be in New York.
Brian, protecting Shedeur, the O-line being better, Shedeur being what are people not talking about from somebody who covers the team on a daily basis? What is being overlooked when it comes to the major storylines for Colorado, if anything?
Well, I think maybe the improvement on defense. I think that they've made some changes on defense that this team could be a lot better than they were last year. They were not very good, especially against the run. They gave up they got gashed a lot against the run last year. They've made a lot of strides. There's all the talk about the O-line. They've made just as many strides on the D-line, I think, and picking up some guys that are really good, like B.J. Green was an all-conference player at Arizona State. You have Deion Hayes and Sam Okunlola, who were two of the top pass rushers at Pitt last year that are both here. So they got some really good guys up front now that I think are going to help them quite a bit.
So my final thing for you, they're going to open at home. They've got Baylor. I know that was a thing we got asked on our website of, like, what's the toughest game? And my mind was like, wow, Colorado that first month, it's, new territory, even though it's old territory, and la-di-da-di-da. My question is this: what kind of environment are people walking into at Folsom Field nowadays? For those who haven't been in a while and haven't seen the Deion effect on the home crowd, what kind of is different or the same, or how would you describe the walking into Folsom Field these days?
Well, very different than it used to be, because you don't know which celebrities are going to be on the sidelines. It could be Lil Wayne rapping in the end zone. I met Dr. J on the sidelines last year.
Awesome.
CC Sabathia. They've got obviously The Rock is a friend of Coach Prime. The wrestler Goldberg, his son is on the team now, and so if The Rock and Goldberg show up at the same time, you might have the toughest sideline in America.
Yeah, no doubt.
That'll be.
I'm sorry. We lost you for a second, or I interrupted you. I'm sorry about that. You said could be the. Go ahead and say on the celebrities again.
Yeah, you have obviously The Rock is a friend of Coach Prime, and the wrestler Goldberg, his son is a walk-on the team now. So if both of them show up at the same time, they might have the toughest sideline in America.
Brian, it is quite the show, isn't it? The glitz and the glamour, and so basically just all that stuff. Even the watches or whatever. And I'm not making fun of that. I am not at all. If you have it, show it. But it is more, if they can come up with meat and potatoes on the bone, they might be pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what prevents people from ranking them so high, is that they don't see all that meat and potatoes yet. I think they see the glitz and the glamour. I think there are people that are bothered by that. And, that's the fun part of it, or to some people, that's the annoying part of it. I think it's been kind of entertaining and fun, but I do think there's more meat on the bone than, to use your term, than people think. I think that this team is very much capable of, if they get some breaks, being in contention for the Big 12 title.
Brian, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Brian Howell covers Colorado, the Buffaloes, and the Boulder Daily Camera. Thanks for his insight and giving us a little bit more than just what you see from the peripheral. When we're at